Some people argue that the First World War started in Bosnia with the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. After this, Austro-Hungary declared war on Serbia, and because of the alliances, other countries got dragged in, and before you knew, there was a whole worldwide conflict, became known as the Great War and later the First World War. But what actually happened with Bosnia during the First World War? That is what you're gonna find out in another countries in World War I episode, Bosnia during the First World War. Bosnia and Herzegovina, a country inhabited by Bosnian Muslims, Bosniaks, Serbs and Croats. This area fell under Austro-Hungarian control in 1878. Full annexation took place in 1908, raising tensions domestically and abroad. And one person who was really outraged by this was Gavrilo Princip, who was a member of Young Bosnia, and he traveled to Serbia to obtain weapons, and he and his associates planned to assassinate Archduke Franz Ferdinand, who was the next in line to become the emperor of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. They positioned themselves along the quay, and eventually Franz Ferdinand did arrive in the building you see right there, but he then took a detour because he wanted to visit the people that were injured during the earlier assassination attempt. The car took a wrong turn. It had to be pulled back, and who was standing there? Gavrilo Princip. He fired 2 shots, killing both the Archduke and his wife Sophie. What followed was the July crisis, because Austro-Hungary demanded a response of Serbia, because Austro-Hungary wanted to deal with Serbia, and they made it look like Serbia itself was behind the attack. Although it was a Bosnian Serb who committed the attack, the young Bosnians had obtained weapons and bombs from a Serbian organization known as the Black Hand, but it is very debatable whether the state of Serbia was actually involved in this. Nevertheless, Austro-Hungary issued an ultimatum to Serbia. The ultimatum contained a list of demands, including allowing Austro-Hungarian officials to investigate the crime on Serbian soil. Serbia agreed to most demands, but not all, leading to tensions between the two nations. Frustrated by Serbia's response, Austro-Hungary declared war on Serbia on the 28th of July 1914, and this act of aggression sparked a regional conflict in the Balkans that turned global. While the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand was the immediate trigger, the outbreak of World War I resulted from a complex web of pre-existing political alliances, territorial ambitions, rising tensions, and a chain of declarations and mobilizations, ultimately leading to a devastating global conflict. Now, Princip, he was too young to receive the death penalty, but he would not live to see the end of World War I and the end of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and that was because he died in prison. A part of the Austro-Hungarian units sent to Serbia were led by Oskar Potiorek, who served as governor of Bosnia and Herzegovina from 1911 to 1914. Among these troops were many Muslims, Orthodox and Catholics. After the Congress of Berlin in 1878, the Austro-Hungarian Empire took control of Bosnia and Herzegovina. While still technically under Ottoman rule until 1908, the territories were effectively governed by Austria-Hungary. To bolster their army, local recruits were enlisted, facilitated by the establishment of a military school in Sarajevo. The recruitment served as a form of repayment for Austro-Hungary's investment in the region. Due to the unique circumstances, Bosnian conscripts had to take a specialized oath, and their uniforms incorporated local attire. Muslim soldiers wore fezes, while non-Muslims wore black caps. Additionally, distinctive breeches were worn by all members of the Bosnian Herzegovinian units. Between 1879 and 1903, 4 military regiments were established. Later, a company from each regiment was assigned to a recruiting district in Sarajevo. By the outbreak of World War I, over 10,000 men served in these regiments, along with a smaller contingent in the Feldjäger battalion. These represented a significant portion of the Hungarian-led forces. From 1891 onward, these units were stationed in various garrisons across the monarchy, including Vienna, Budapest, Graz, Wiener Neustadt, Trieste, and Bruck later. During World War I, Bosnian and Herzegovinian soldiers were deployed across various fronts where Austro-Hungarian forces were engaged in battle. Although they were part of major battles, their regiments were often fragmented, with individual battalions fighting separately. Records indicate that Bosnian and Herzegovinian troops served in at least 37 different divisions during the conflict. Despite initial concerns, the morale of the Bosnian troops remained strong at the war's onset. While some Serbian Orthodox soldiers felt slighted by doubts about their reliability, overall Bosnian and Herzegovinian forces proved themselves steadfast in combat, with only minor incidents of wavering. In September 1915, two new Bosnian and Herzegovinian Feldjäger battalions number 2 and 3 were established, followed by 4 more in early 1916, number 4 and 8. Along with the regiment number 5 later that year. By February 1918, a reorganization of the army led to the formation of new Bosnian and Herzegovinian infantry regiments numbers 6 to 8, consolidating remnants of earlier units. Additionally, between October 1917 and March 1918, Infantry Regiment number 10 was formed from elements of the disbanded 5th Regiment. At its peak, approximately 35 battalions were in service, each with around 1,000 soldiers. However, these numbers varied significantly throughout the war. Now, in the Serbian army, there were many volunteers for Bosnia and other Slav areas in Austro-Hungary. Also, Bosnians served in the Montenegrin army. The Austro-Hungarian authorities, under the leadership of Baron Sarkotic, took harsh actions against nationalists and political activists and anyone who seemed to support the Serbian cause. Anti-Serbian riots already occurred right after the assassination of Franz Ferdinand, but during the war, it got even worse. 5,000 Serbian families were expelled to Serbia and Montenegro. Others were interned. At least 3,300 and possible as many as 5,500 Bosnian suspects, mainly Serbs, were held in internment camps in Bosnia and Hungary. Between 700 and 2,200 are thought to have died there. Now do notice that most Bosniaks were loyal to the Habsburg monarchy because they did not want to become a part of a greater Serbia. Now, when looking at the Croats, that's a little bit more complicated. An interesting analysis of the Bosnian Croats' position comes in a letter from the director of the Catholic seminary in Travnik to the Austrian government. Some, he said, wanted to join Serbia, while others were absolutely against it. Those who wanted unconditional unification with Serbia were mainly among the intelligentsia, and some of these were even willing to give up their Catholicism. Their freedom from Rome tendencies chime with their political freedom from Austria tendencies. What also played a part was the 1915 Serbian agreement to give large parts of Dalmatian, Istria and Slovenia to Italy on the condition that Italy would join the Entente. Now, within Austro-Hungary, there existed a trialist solution where a Yugoslav state within Austro-Hungary would become an equal partner to the others. Leading Slovenes in the Austrian parliament, led by Monsignor Korosek, issued a declaration in May 1917. Many Bosnian Serbs and Croats were won over by this. This divided the Muslims, on the other hand, who advocated for Bosnian autonomy within Hungary. They made an appeal to the emperor. At the end, the Austro-Hungarian government did nothing, and by the time they were beginning to take this seriously, in the spring of 1918, it was already far too late. Desertions and strikes occurred on a daily basis. I mean, there was, for example, the Cattaro Mutiny. Governor of Bosnia, Baron Sarkotic, began a series of meetings in order to preserve Habsburg rule. First, he advised Bosnia to join Croatia, and later as a separate body within Hungary. In August, the Austro-Hungarian war effort was faltering day by day. Hungarian minister Count Tisza arrived in Sarajevo in September, hoping to make local politicians accept a new constitutional arrangement under the Hungarian crown. He got the following replies. The Serbs and Croats, led by the Serb politician Vojislav Šola, presented a joint memorandum in which they said they were all one people and wished to form a Yugoslav state with all Serbs, Croats and Slovenes. They complained bitterly of wartime measures such as the suppression of local government, requisitions and political trials. Their demands included a full amnesty for political prisoners and the restoration of constituent rule, with free elections for the new parliament. Now, some Muslim leaders wanted autonomy under Hungary, others favored union with Croatia. Bosnian politician in the interwar years, Mehmet Spaho, claimed Bosnian Muslims were in favor of the creation of a Yugoslav state. It were the Serbs who felt like victors of the war. Baron Sarkotic wrote on October 29th, in Sarajevo, the exaggerated joy of the Serbs seemed to have had, to a certain extent, a calming effect on the Croats and the Muslims. The Bosnian National Council made various requests. When Sarkotic was asked if he could free political prisoners, he simply replied, you're in power now. 2 days later, the first national government of Bosnia and Herzegovina was formed. Anarchy reigned on the countryside as Austro-Hungary collapsed. As Croats and Bosniaks had served in the Schutzkorps, executing anti-Serbian policies during the war, hatred between the groups existed. When Serbian and Montenegrin soldiers arrived in Bosnia, it is said that over 1,000 Muslims were killed and many villages raided. How many died altogether in Bosnia from military action and typhus is hard to calculate. There was a demographic loss of more than 300,000, nearly 1/6 of the population between 1910 and 1921. But this loss also includes Muslims who fled in a second wave of immigration to Turkey after 1918. Thanks to my patrons, you see their names on the screen, and a special thanks to Rainy Bechtel, Thomas Sapiega, Damian Wallace, Connor, Marcus Kaas, Nick Terranova, Mark Littlehill, Justin Trebell, Tanya Dixie, Susanna Di Bella, Fabrizio, Robert Meehan, David H. Ovett, Wayback History, Michael Prusi, Daniel Holland and Marcus Fielding. Now Bosnia would become part of the Kingdom of Serbs, Croats and Slovenes that later became known as Yugoslavia. That kingdom found its demise in the Second World War. If you want to learn more on that, click here and click here to learn about Montenegro in World War II. Thanks for watching and bye for now.